Andre Cole was 41 years old when his wife of 8 years handed him a settlement that left him with a truck, a hard drive, and $4,200. Diana didn't just leave the marriage, she engineered its collapse, coordinating attorneys, redirecting his clients, and timing the divorce filing to a date that suited her business partner and secret lover. She walked away with the house, the firm's accounts, and 11 years of the brand Andre had built from nothing. She called him brilliant, but not a businessman, and she smiled when she said it. She believed that smile was the last thing he had left. What Diana never calculated, what she could not have calculated because she never truly saw him, was what a man like Andre Cole does when you strip everything away except the one thing he actually is. 2 years later, she stepped out of a car in Midtown Manhattan, looked up, and saw his face on a Times Square billboard. And that was only the beginning of what she hadn't seen coming. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The living room still smelled like her perfume. That was the first thing Andre noticed. The movers had been gone for 2 hours, and the house was completely empty. Not a chair, not a lamp, not a single piece of the life they had built together. But the scent of her was still there, hanging in the air like something that hadn't gotten the message yet. He stood in the middle of the room and looked at the walls. He had designed the frames himself. Custom walnut, hand-finished. Each one sized and positioned to balance the natural light that came through the south-facing windows. Windows he had specifically requested when they were negotiating the build. The art was gone. The frames were gone. The walls were just walls now. 4 surfaces holding up a ceiling he no longer owned. The hardwood floors showed the ghosts of furniture legs. 4 small indentations where the couch had been. A faint rectangle near the fireplace where Diana's reading chair sat for 8 years, though he could count on both hands the number of times he had seen her actually read in it. She had chosen everything in this room. Every piece, every color. She had a gift for it, for walking into a space and knowing immediately what it wanted to be. He had always admired that about her. He stood there and let himself admire it one last time. It hadn't happened all at once. That was the thing about the way Diana worked. Nothing she did arrived all at once. It built slowly, quietly, the way water pressure builds inside a wall before anything cracks. He remembered a Tuesday night, maybe 4 years into the marriage. Blueprints spread across the dining room table, a cold cup of coffee at his elbow. His drafting pencil moving in the careful, unhurried way it always moved when he was deep in something real. He had been working on the Callaway Commission, a community health center in East Point. One of his best projects, one that would eventually win a regional design award and hang his name in rooms that had never heard it before. Diana had appeared in the doorway dressed for a dinner he had forgotten about. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. She stood there for a moment, watching him work, and then she said, "You're going to be the most brilliant broke man in Atlanta if you don't learn how to charge what you're worth." She had smiled when she said it. That was the thing he kept returning to in the years that followed, when he had enough distance to read it clearly. She always smiled. The smile was what made it feel like love instead of erosion. "You're brilliant, baby. You really are. But brilliant doesn't pay the invoice. You're an artist running a business, and you don't even see it." He had looked up from the blueprints and said something like, "I see it fine." She had kissed him on the top of his head and left for the dinner. He had gone back to the Callaway Commission. The health center was completed 14 months later and came in under budget. He thought about that now, standing in the empty room. He wondered when exactly she had stopped believing the smile and started using it. He knew the facts of what had happened. He had lived them. Her attorney argued that Cole Design had been established using a loan from Diana's family, which made the firm a marital asset. Andre's attorney, a man Diana had recommended early in the separation, in the gentle, concerned voice of a woman who still wanted the best for him, had failed to counter that argument with the force it required. He had missed documents. He had allowed characterizations to stand unchallenged. The settlement was what it was. The house went. The firm's operational accounts went. 11 years of brand equity, 3 regional awards, a portfolio of 11 completed buildings, a name that had started to mean something in this city, reduced to a line in a legal document and whatever fit on an external hard drive. He had walked out with his drafting equipment, packed into the bed of his truck. He had walked out with $40,200 in his bank account. He had walked out with the dog's leash still hanging on the hook by the door, until he remembered that the dog had gone too. He unhooked the leash and set it on the floor. Then he locked the front door for the last time and put the key in the lockbox the realtor had bolted to the porch railing. He drove to Decatur. Uncle Leon opened the door before Andre reached the porch steps. He looked at his nephew the way Leon had always looked at him, like a man reading a structure, checking what was still load-bearing. He didn't say anything. He just stepped to the side. Andre walked in. Leon made coffee. The kitchen was warm and smelled like the same dish soap it had smelled like for 20 years. Andre sat down at the table and looked at his hands. The hands that had drawn 11 buildings, 3 awards, a firm, a marriage. After a while, he said, "She took everything." Leon set a mug down in front of him. He pulled out the chair across the table and sat down slowly, the way a man his age earns the right to sit. "Not everything," Leon said. Andre didn't answer. He kept looking at his hands and said nothing more that night. Andre woke up on Leon's couch at 5:47 in the morning. He knew the time because the old clock on the mantel, the one with the brass face and the loud tick that Leon had owned since before Andre was born, had been the first sound he registered when his eyes opened. Not gradually, all at once, like a door swinging open. 1 second he was under, the next he was completely awake, staring at the water stain on Leon's ceiling with the full weight of yesterday already sitting on his chest. He lay there and let it sit. The living room was cluttered in the comfortable way of a man who used his space instead of decorating it. A pipe wrench on the bookshelf, contractor boots by the door, both of them worn through at the toe, a folding table against the wall with a level, 2 tape measures, and a coffee can full of screws that Leon had probably been meaning to sort since 2009. The couch Andre was lying on had a spring that pressed into his left shoulder blade, and the blanket Leon had given him smelled like cedar and motor oil. It was the most at home he had felt in years. He sat up, put his feet on the floor, looked at his phone. The texts from Brianna went back 11 days. He had read them when they came in and said nothing to each one. "Andre, call me. I'm serious. Call me. I should have been your lawyer. You know that. Call me. Don't make me fly to Atlanta. Are you eating? Call me." The last one had come in 2 days ago. "I have a spare room. New York is a fresh start. Call me." He put the phone face down on the cushion beside him and went to wash his face. He spent 3 days at Leon's, mostly quiet. Leon did not push him to talk. He would disappear in the morning to a job site or a hardware run and come back in the afternoon. And if Andre was sitting at the kitchen table going through his finances on his laptop, Leon would make 2 glasses of iced tea, set one next to the laptop without comment, and go watch the evening news. That was the whole shape of it. It was enough. The finances confirmed what he already knew. The $4,200 was real. The operational accounts for Cole Design were gone, formally transferred, legally signed off on, every line of it neat and final on the settlement documents he had read so many times, the paper had gone soft at the fold. His personal savings had been drained steadily across the last year of the marriage, during a period he now understood in a different light than he had when it was happening. At the time, it had felt like the natural bleed of a marriage under strain. Now, it felt like something else. He filed that thought in the place where he kept things he wasn't ready to fully examine yet. He had his drafting equipment. He had his truck. He had a hard drive with 11 completed projects, 3 award citations, and every professional contact he had cultivated across 14 years of working in this city. He had $4,200. He called Brianna on the 3rd morning. She picked up on the 2nd ring. "It's about time," she said. Not warm, not sharp. Just direct, the way she had always been with him. "I need a place to land," he said. "I told you. Spare room's yours. Might be a while." "Andre." A pause. "I know what they did. Come to New York." He said he'd be there in 2 days. He found Leon in the backyard that afternoon, resealing the concrete around the base of the back steps. Leon looked up when the screen door opened. He read Andre's face the way he always read things, practically, without drama. "New York," Andre said. Leon nodded like that was already the answer he'd been expecting. "When?" "Tomorrow morning." Leon stood up slowly, the way a man does when his knees are 67 years old, and set his trowel down on the edge of the step. "Let me help you load up." They loaded the truck together in the early evening. The drafting table, the equipment cases, the hard drive, wrapped in a flannel shirt, and placed carefully in the passenger footwell, like the most important thing, because it was. Leon moved without fuss and without commentary, handing things up into the truck bed with the same quiet efficiency he brought to every job he had ever worked. When the truck was loaded, he went inside and came back with an envelope. He held it out. "Leon, take it." Andre took it. He didn't open it. He folded it and put it in his jacket pocket, and looked at his uncle. Leon put a hand on his shoulder. "Come back bigger." He pulled up to Brianna's building on West 118th Street at 11:15 that night. The street was lit orange under the streetlights. He found parking half a block down, cut the engine, and sat in the quiet for a moment. He buzzed her apartment from the lobby. She was down in under a minute. No makeup, house slippers, hair wrapped. She opened the door and looked him over once, the way you look at someone you have known long enough to see past the surface. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "You'll be okay." She said, "Come in. We'll figure it out." Andre picked up his bag and walked through the door. 18 months is a long time when you are building something. It is nothing at all when you are watching someone else do it. Andre had stopped counting the months somewhere around month 6. That was when the work at OSEI plus Ward had stopped feeling like survival and started feeling like purpose again, the slow return of a thing he had not realized he was missing until it came back. He was a senior associate now. His name was on internal memos, on client correspondence, on the cover sheet of a brief that Victor Osi had handed him 7 months ago with the kind of directness that passed, in Victor's world, for high praise. "Atlanta," Victor had said, setting the folder on Andre's desk. "Mixed use, affordable housing corridor. City's been waiting for someone to do it right. I want your eyes on everything." Andre had opened the folder and felt something settle in his chest. He knew Atlanta the way you only know a city you came up in. Not just its streets, but its weight. The particular pride and particular exhaustion of a place that was always building toward something and always running out of time to finish. He knew which blocks had been promised things and never received them. He knew where the gap was. He had been carrying a version of this project in the back of his mind since before Cole Design existed. He told Victor he'd have preliminary drawings by the end of the month. He had them in 11 days. The Architecture Digest profile had come out of that. A writer covering OSEI plus Ward's southern expansion had asked to sit with the man leading it. Andre had agreed, said less than the writer expected, and the photograph had come out better than either of them planned. Andre at his drafting table, one hand resting on the edge of a site model, looking directly into the camera with the particular stillness that had always read, to people who didn't know him, as something harder than it actually was. Victor had forwarded him the piece with a single line: "Good work." He had showed it to no one except Leon. Leon had called on a Tuesday evening, checking in the way he did every week or so, his voice carrying the background sound of a television he was only half watching. "Your uncle reads architecture magazines now," Leon said. "Just so you know." Andre had almost smiled. "Is that right?" Saw a photograph of a man at a drafting table. Looked familiar. "That's the profile." "I know what it is." A pause. "They're using it for advertising, you said?" "Campaign. Few cities." "Which cities?" "New York," Andre said. "Chicago. D.C. A few others." Silence on Leon's end. Then, "New York? Where?" "Times Square." Leon laughed. It was a full laugh, the kind that came from somewhere real, and it went on long enough that Andre had to wait for it to finish. When it did, Leon said, "God's got a sense of humor, nephew. You know that?" "I'm starting to," Andre said. "You going to go look at it?" "I've got drawings due." Leon laughed again, shorter this time. "That's my boy." They talked for another few minutes about Leon's knees and the concrete job he was finishing in East Point and whether Andre was eating enough. Then they hung up, and Andre went back to his desk, and that was the whole of it. Diana and Philip arrived in New York on a Wednesday. The investor meetings for the Whitfield Garrett project were scheduled across 2 days at a firm in Midtown, a real estate finance group that Philip had been cultivating for 8 months. Diana wore the emerald earrings she had bought herself when the LLC paperwork was finalized. She moved through the hotel lobby the morning of the second day with the smooth, unhurried ease of a woman who had decided the hard part was finished. The car dropped them half a block from the restaurant where they were meeting a contact for breakfast. The November air was cold and sharp. Diana stepped out first, pulling her coat closed, and started walking. She looked up. It was the kind of thing you did automatically in Midtown. There was always something above you. A screen, a sign, a building face covered in light. Your eyes moved up the way water moved downhill. It wasn't a decision. She stopped walking. Andre's face looked back at her from 40 feet up. The photograph from Architecture Digest, enlarged to a scale that made stillness look like authority. His hand at the edge of the drafting table. His eyes direct and unperformed. His name beneath the image in clean sans serif type. And beneath the name, in smaller letters, OCI plus Ward. The city moved around her. A cab horn. Someone's shoulder brushing past. Her assistant said something. She did not hear it. Philip stopped 2 steps ahead and followed her eye line up. She watched his face change in her peripheral vision. Not surprise exactly, but the particular recalibration of a man who has just registered new information and is already deciding what to do with it. Diana turned from the billboard. She walked into the restaurant. She did not look back. She reached out to Marcus Webb that evening. An Atlanta contact. Someone who moved in the same development circles. Someone who knew most people and owed her a comfortable favor. She kept the ask casual, just checking in on an old acquaintance. Whatever happened to Andre Cole? Marcus called her back in 20 minutes. What he told her arrived in pieces. Senior Associate, OSCI plus Ward, leading the Atlanta expansion. Victor Ose. She knew that name. Everyone in the industry knew that name. Had said something in print about Andre that Marcus quoted back to her from memory, because it was the kind of quote people repeated. She sat with the phone in her hand after the call ended. The ledger she kept in her head, the private accounting of who had landed where, who had risen and who had stayed flat, had not included this column. She had filed Andre under didn't work out and moved on with the certainty of a woman whose math was usually correct. What she was looking at now was a correction she had not authorized, written in a hand she recognized and had badly underestimated. In the room 2 floors above, Philip ran his own search. It took him 20 minutes to find what he was looking for. The OSEI plus Ward Atlanta expansion brief was in the public development filings, the site corridor, the project scope, the compliance documentation. He read it carefully, the way he read anything that might become a liability. The OSEI plus Ward project sat in the same corridor as the Whitfield Garrett project. It was better financed. It met every affordable housing requirement, every single one, cleanly, with documentation that would survive any review. He set his phone on the nightstand. He did not call Diana. He lay back and looked at the ceiling and began, quietly and efficiently, to calculate. The call came at 7:14 in the morning. Andre was already at his desk. He had been there since 6, coffee going cold beside a site model he had been adjusting by small degrees, a residential block on the south end of the corridor, 3 stories of affordable units above ground floor retail, the proportions not quite right yet. He had been staring at it the way he stared at anything that was almost correct, but not yet. His phone lit up. Brianna. He picked up on the second ring. "Tell me you're awake," she said. "I'm at my desk." "Good." A pause, the kind where he could hear her deciding how to begin. Brianna did not waste pauses. When she took one, it meant what came next had weight. "I've been pulling public records on Atlanta development projects for the expansion research, competitive landscape, site corridor overlaps, that kind of thing. Standard due diligence." "Okay." "I pulled the Whitfield Garrett project." Andre said nothing. He set down the small tool he had been holding. "The LLC," Brianna said. "Whitfield Garrett Development Partners, LLC. It was filed with the Georgia Secretary of State." Another pause. "Andre. It was formed 6 months before Diana filed for divorce." The room was very quiet. He did the math the way he did any calculation, not rushing it, letting each number find its place. 6 months before the filing. That put the formation date inside the marriage. Inside what he had believed, at the time, was a difficult stretch they were working through. Inside the months when Diana had been telling him she felt disconnected, that the distance between them had grown, that she wasn't sure what they were building toward anymore. He had listened to all of it. He had taken it seriously. He had gone to 2 sessions with a couples counselor Diana had found and scheduled, and then stopped attending after the second appointment. "The asset arguments," he said. His voice was even. "The loan from her family. They used it to argue Cole Design was a marital asset." "Yes." "The timing of when that loan became a legal weapon." He stopped. "That lines up." "It does," Brianna said. "The deliberate drainage of the operational accounts during the proceedings. That window aligns too. She was already formally partnered with Philip Garrett when all of it happened, Andre. The divorce wasn't a reaction. It was a schedule," he said. The word sat between them on the line. "Yes," Brianna said quietly. He stood up from his desk. He walked to the window. Outside, the city was already moving. Early commuters, delivery trucks, the gray November sky pressing down on the tops of buildings. He looked at it without really seeing it. 8 years. He had built a firm. He had built a home. He had believed, in the way that a man believes in a structure he designed himself, that what they had was load-bearing. He had been wrong about the materials. "How deep does it go?" he asked. "I don't know yet. I need more time." "Then take it." He turned back toward his desk. "Pull everything. Financing, partners, approval records, every public document you can reach. All of it." "Andre, I'm not doing anything with it yet. I just need to see the whole picture. I don't make decisions without the full picture." "I know," she said. "That's why I called you and not the other way around." "A beat. I'll start today." They hung up. Andre stood at the window for another moment. Then he went back to his desk, moved the site model 2 inches to the left, and picked up his phone again. Victor Osi answered on the first ring, which meant he was already working. "I want to talk about the Atlanta structure," Andre said. The expansion brief. I think it's time to formalize it differently. Differently how? A named partnership. Atlanta specific. OSEI plus Ward plus Cole. He said it plainly, without preamble. My name on the door. It changes how we enter that market. It changes what clients see when they search the corridor. A silence. Not the hesitating kind, the considering kind. Victor's silences were always deliberate. It also changes what the press writes about, Victor said. Yes. Another pause. Send me a one-page structure outline by end of day. If it holds, we announce next week. It'll hold, Andre said. Victor ended the call. The announcement went out the following Thursday through the firm's communications office. A formal press release, clean and precise, 3 paragraphs. The trade publications picked it up within 24 hours. Architectural Record ran it with a photograph. 2 Atlanta business journals followed. A design blog with a significant readership in the Southeast ran a longer piece, pulling quotes from the Architecture Digest profile, noting the return of a name that had once been prominent in Atlanta's design conversation. Andre's name was back in that conversation now, not as a footnote, not as a casualty, as a partner, as the man leading a project that was already better financed and more fully compliant than anything being built beside it. He read 2 of the pieces and then closed his laptop. That evening, after the office had emptied, Andre sat at his drafting desk with the Atlanta expansion models arranged in front of him. The residential block he had been adjusting all morning finally looked right. The proportions had resolved themselves sometime in the afternoon, the way difficult things sometimes did, not through force, but through sustained attention and enough time. He picked up his pencil. He began to work. The documents were already spread across the table when Andre arrived. Brianna's home office was small and deliberate. A desk, 2 chairs, a wall of labeled binders, a whiteboard she kept wiped clean until she needed it. She worked the way she lived. Nothing out that didn't have a purpose. But this morning the table was covered. Printed records, highlighted columns, 2 yellow legal pads with her handwriting running margin to margin. She did not offer coffee. She pointed at the chair across from her and sat down. "Walk me through it," Andre said. She placed her finger on the first document, a loan agreement, the kind of paper that looks routine until someone explains what it was used for. "Diana's family loan," she said. "The one her attorney used to argue Cole Design was a marital asset. You remember the argument. Outside capital investment in a marital business, therefore shared equity, therefore subject to division. I remember. The loan was made 2 years into your marriage." She slid the document toward him. Year 2. Everything still solid. No signs of trouble. Her family gave it freely. No formal repayment terms. No documentation of intent beyond a handwritten letter. At the time, it looked like family support. It looked like in-laws investing in a young couple's future. Andre looked at the paper. He had signed documents like this before. The kind where trust substituted for legal precision. But here's what I want you to look at. Brianna placed a second sheet beside it. A timeline printed in columns, dates running down the left margin. This is the Whitfield Garrett LLC formation. This is Diana's first documented contact with Philip Garrett's professional network. I pulled it from a real estate conference registration list and a co-sponsorship filing, both public. And this, she tapped a date near the bottom, is the first time that family loan appears in any of the divorce attorney's pre-filing research notes. Andre followed the column. The loan was made in year 2. It sat unused as a legal instrument for 6 years. Then, within months of Diana's first documented contact with Philip Garrett's network, someone picked it up and pointed it at Cole Design. "Someone decided to use it," he said. "Someone decided to use it," Brianna confirmed. "The loan was never a weapon when it was given. It became one when it was needed." He set the timeline down. He was quiet for a moment. Not the absence of thought, but the presence of too much of it. All of it arriving in the controlled way that kept his face still while something else moved underneath. "What else?" he said. Brianna reached for the second legal pad. "I found Arthur Reeves." Andre looked up. "Commercial developer, mid-size operation, Atlanta-based. You designed a mixed-use retail complex for him in 2017. He was in your client pipeline for a follow-on project the year after. The Brookhaven Commission." Andre's voice was flat. "He went with another firm. He told me the timeline changed." "The timeline didn't change." Brianna folded her hands on top of the legal pad. "Diana approached him during the marriage. She suggested, and I'm using Reeves's own word, suggested, that he redirect future work to a firm she could recommend. The recommendation was Garrett's preferred contractor network." The room held a particular silence. "He listened," Andre said. "He listened. He redirected the Brookhaven project. He has not worked with another firm since that he didn't privately regret." She paused. "He told me he carried it. He said it exactly like that. I carried it. He didn't know what she was doing. He thought she was networking. He didn't understand until later that he had been used as a mechanism. He'll put it in writing. He already agreed." She slid the legal pad across. His name was at the top, underlined. Below it, her notes from the conversation, direct quotes, dates, the name of the project, the nature of the referral. "He said yes before I finished asking." Andre read through the notes once. He set the pad down. He aligned it with the edge of the table, a small and precise movement. He did not say anything for a long moment. Then, "Okay." "Okay," Brianna repeated, not as a question. She knew what the word carried for him. She gave it room. "Keep building the record," he said. "We're not ready to move yet. File Reeves's statement when it comes in formally, and keep it with the rest." He stood. "We need the full picture. All of it." "I know," she said. He called Uncle Leon that night from his apartment. The city outside his window was doing what cities do at 11 o'clock, lit up and indifferent, moving without him. Leon picked up on the second ring. "What happened?" It wasn't a question. Leon always knew. "She was working against me from inside the house," Andre said. "While we were married, while I was at my desk thinking I was building something for us." The line was quiet. Leon let it breathe. "What are you going to do about it?" Leon said. Andre looked out at the skyline. "Finish what I started," he said, "and then make sure she knows exactly what happened." Leon said nothing for a moment. "All right," he said, finally. That was all. But from Leon, that was everything. Brianna called at 7:14 in the morning. Andre was already at his desk, coffee cooling beside him. The Atlanta expansion drawings spread out under the desk lamp. Elevation lines, unit counts, the kind of careful work that asked everything of him and gave everything back. He picked up on the first ring. "Sit down," Brianna said. He sat. She did not open slowly. That was not how she worked. She moved through preamble the way she moved through bad weather, directly, without stopping to describe it. "I've been tracing the attorney referral chain from your divorce," she said. "I went back through the records I initially marked routine. I read them again from a different angle." Andre said nothing. He waited. "The attorney you used," she said. "Marcus Webb. I remember him. He failed to counter Diana's asset arguments. He missed the loan document timeline. He let Cole Design get characterized as a marital asset without pushing back hard enough on the origin or the intent of the loan. You walked out of those proceedings with almost nothing, and his performance was a primary reason why." "I know," Andre said. "I've known that for 2 years. What you don't know," Brianna said, "is where you got his name." Something shifted in the room. Not a sound. Just a quality of the air. "Diana," he said. A beat. "Diana," Brianna confirmed. "Early in the separation, you were overwhelmed, trying to hold yourself together, and you called her. You were looking for the name of the real estate attorney you'd both used on the Cascade Road closing years before. You thought she'd be civil about it. You trusted her to be human about it. He remembered the call. He remembered sitting in his truck in the parking lot of a Home Depot in Buckhead, the day after she told him she wanted a divorce. He remembered how quiet she had been, how helpful. She had said she didn't have the other attorney's number handy, but she knew someone who handled family law. Someone good. Someone she had heard great things about. She gave him the name without hesitation. He had written it on the back of a receipt. He had thanked her. Her attorney, Brianna said, was a partner inside Philip Garrett's preferred legal network. That is documented. There are co-referral records, shared client filings, 2 joint retainers on Garrett-adjacent real estate deals going back 4 years. And Webb, Andre said. Marcus Webb had a prior professional relationship with Diana's attorney's firm. He wasn't a plant in the theatrical sense. He was something quieter than that. She paused. He was someone they knew would lose gracefully. He would show up, file the standard responses, miss the critical angles, and the whole thing would look like a fair proceeding on paper. Andre set down his pen. She hand-selected both sides of the courtroom, Brianna said. Your attorney and hers. She owned the room before you walked into it. The divorce wasn't a proceeding, Andre. It was a performance. The outcome was decided before you hired anyone, and she sold you your own defeat while you thanked her for the referral. He did not say anything. Andre, I'm here. I know what this is, she said. Take a minute. He put the phone down on the desk. He did not hang up. He stood and walked to the window. The city was fully awake outside. Morning light hitting glass, the street 11 floors below already moving. He stood there and looked at none of it. He was looking at a parking lot in Buckhead 2 years ago. He was looking at his own handwriting on the back of a receipt, a name and a phone number, written in gratitude. He had trusted her, even at the end, even in the wreckage of everything. He had called her, and she had answered, and he had been grateful. He stood at the window for a long time. His phone buzzed on the desk, then stopped, then buzzed again. He walked back. The call from Brianna was still open. He picked it up. I'll call you back, he said. I'm okay. He hung up. 14 minutes later, Uncle Leon called. Andre answered. Talk to me, Leon said. Andre told him about the attorney. All of it. The separation phone call, the receipt, Marcus Webb, the co-referral chain, both sides of the courtroom. Leon was quiet the whole time. Not absent. Andre could hear him breathing, could hear the particular quality of someone listening with their whole body. When Andre finished, Leon said, She needed you gone, and she made sure you stayed gone. Yes. So what are you going to do? Andre looked at the Atlanta drawings on his desk, the elevation lines, the unit counts. His name, typed clean in the title block of every sheet. Build something she can't tear down, he said, and then make her watch. Leon said nothing. He didn't need to. After they hung up, Andre sat for a moment. Then he picked up his phone and dialed Arthur Reeves. Reeves picked up on the third ring. Andre. Arthur, I want to offer you the first independent commission for our new Atlanta office. Reeves said, Yes, before Andre finished the sentence. The compliance tip was 3 pages. Brianna had spent a week building it. Public records only. The project's city application, the fast-track endorsement filing, the affordable unit allocation buried in page 11 of the development summary. The Whitfield Garrett project had declared 11% affordable units to qualify for a fast-track city endorsement. The minimum requirement for that status was 30%. The gap was not a rounding error. It was not an oversight. It was a misrepresentation filed with the City of Atlanta on official documents, signed and dated. Brianna submitted the tip to Atlanta's City Development Oversight Office on a Tuesday morning. She did not copy Andre on the submission. She called him after. "It's filed," she said. "Who receives it?" "A compliance officer in the Development Review Division. From there, it goes to a senior investigator if the evidence warrants an inquiry. Based on what I sent them, it warrants an inquiry. Timeline? Could be weeks before they open it formally. Could be less. These things move at their own pace once they're inside the system." Andre said, "Okay. You understand this part is out of our hands now," Brianna said. "That's the point. We didn't fire it. We handed it to the people whose job is to fire it." "I know," he said. "That's why it'll hold." The letter to the law firm went out on Thursday. 3 paragraphs. Brianna's firm letterhead. The partner named was a man called Edward Cho, 22 years in Atlanta's legal community, a reputation built on careful positioning and strategic relationship. What the letter documented was the concurrent business relationship between Cho's firm and Philip Garrett's development company. During the same period, Cho's firm represented Diana in the divorce proceedings, while a former colleague of that firm was simultaneously handling Andre's case. The letter demanded nothing. It preserved everything. It stated, in careful and measured language, that the information had been compiled and documented, that it was being held, and that all legal options remained open. Brianna had read it to Andre over the phone before sending it. When she finished, he said, "Send it. It will shake him." "Good," Andre said. "Let it shake." She sent it. Leon arrived Saturday morning, driving up from Decatur in his 11-year-old truck. He parallel parked it in front of Andre's building with the ease of a man who has never been intimidated by a city. Andre brought him up to the OSEI Plus ward offices. The building was quiet on a Saturday, only a few junior staff working weekend hours at the far end of the floor. Andre walked Leon through the space slowly, the way Leon had always walked buildings, not performing the tour, just letting him see it. Leon moved through the main floor without speaking. He looked at the ceiling height. He ran a hand along the edge of a conference room partition and nodded slightly, the way contractors do when construction meets their standard. He stopped at the window that looked south over the city and stood there for a moment. Then he walked to Andre's desk. The Atlanta development model sat at the corner, foam core and clean balsa, precise to a quarter inch. Every unit represented. The affordable housing blocks integrated through the structure rather than separated to the edges the way lesser designs handled them. Leon picked it up with both hands and turned it slowly in the light. He studied it for a long time. He set it down carefully. "Your daddy would have loved this," he said. Andre looked at the model. "I know." Leon put his hand on Andre's shoulder once, brief and solid, the way he had been doing since Andre was 12 years old. Then he stepped back and looked around the office one more time. "You ready for Atlanta?" Leon said. "Almost," Andre said. That evening, after Leon had gone back to his hotel, Andre sat alone in his apartment and looked at his phone for a long time. Then he dialed Diana's number. She picked up after 3 rings. Her voice was smooth, unhurried, the voice of a woman who had not been caught off guard by anything in years. "Andre." A small, almost amused pause. "This is unexpected." "I imagine so," he said. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. I'll be in Atlanta next week. I want 30 minutes of your time. In person." A beat of silence. Not nervous silence, curious silence. There was a difference, and Andre knew it well. "What is this about?" "Closure," he said. "I think we both deserve that." Another pause. Shorter this time. "I can do lunch. Wednesday." "Wednesday works. Should I be concerned?" She said it the way you say something when you already believe the answer is no. "No," Andre said. "I just want to talk." "All right then," she said. Warm. Easy. Already certain she understood the room. "Wednesday." They hung up. Andre set the phone on his desk. He opened his laptop, pulled up the airline's booking page, and reserved a seat on the first Tuesday evening flight to Atlanta. Then he turned back to his drafting desk and went back to work. Andre arrived 20 minutes early. The restaurant was a quiet place on Peachtree. White tablecloths, low lighting, the kind of room where Atlanta's business class came to talk without being overheard. He had chosen it deliberately, public enough that Diana would feel comfortable, private enough for real conversation. The hostess seated him at a corner table. He ordered coffee, set his phone face down beside the saucer, and waited. He was wearing a charcoal suit he had bought 6 months ago. No tie, no flash, just clean lines and good fabric. Nothing about it announced itself. It simply fit the way clothes fit a man who has stopped trying to dress for other people's approval. His shoes were polished. His hands were still. He looked like exactly what he was. He did not look at his phone. He did not rehearse what he was going to say. He had already said it 100 times inside his own head, in the quiet hours at his drafting desk, and it had long since stopped feeling like a speech. It was just information now. His job was to deliver it precisely. He watched the door. Diana walked in at 12:02. She moved through the room the way she always had, not rushing, not hesitating, carrying herself with the easy assurance of a woman who expected the room to rearrange itself slightly around her arrival. Her coat was camel-colored. Her earrings caught the light. She looked good. She knew she looked good. That knowledge was part of how she walked. She spotted Andre and crossed toward him, and when she sat down across the table, she took one long look at him and smiled. "You look good, Andre," she said. Warm, genuine even. Or close enough to genuine that most people wouldn't know the difference. "Diana," he said. She settled into her chair and draped her coat over the back with the unhurried ease of a woman who had already decided how this conversation was going to go. She picked up the menu, glanced at it, set it down. "I almost didn't recognize you in that suit." He let that sit without answering. The waiter came. She ordered sparkling water and a salad. Andre kept his coffee. When the waiter left, Diana folded her hands on the table and looked at him with the expression she had always used when she wanted to communicate that she was being reasonable, open, attentive, faintly indulgent. "So," she said. "Closure, closure," he said. He reached down and lifted the folder from the seat beside him. He placed it on the table and slid it across to her without opening it. She looked at it. Then she looked at him. Then she opened it. He gave her 60 seconds. He counted them in his head, not because he was anxious, but because precision mattered, and 60 seconds was enough. He watched her face move through the pages, the LLC formation date, the attorney referral chain, documented step by step, Arthur Reeves's signed statement on his company letterhead, the compliance filing summary, the legal notice to Edward Cho's firm. Her expression did not collapse. Diana was too controlled for collapse, but something shifted in it. A slight tightening around the eyes, a stillness that replaced the warmth the way a door replaces an open window. She closed the folder. "Andre, I'm not here to negotiate," he said. His voice was even, not cold, just clear. "I'm here to tell you what happens next, so you can make your own decisions before they're made for you." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "You know our marriage had real problems. Both of us know that." She said it gently, like she was offering him something, like she was extending him the dignity of a shared narrative. "The problems are documented in that folder," he said. "Keep reading if you'd like." Her jaw tightened slightly. She shifted her approach the way a person shifts their weight. Divorce proceedings are complicated. Asset arguments are standard. You're being dramatic about a normal legal process. "A coordinated attorney placement isn't a proceeding," he said. "It's a setup. Your attorney, my attorney, the same network. That's in there too." She looked at him. He looked back. Then her voice dropped to something lower, more deliberate. "Philip has attorneys who handle situations like this I want you to think carefully about what you're starting. Philip's attorneys are about to have their hands full with the compliance investigation, Andre said. I wouldn't count on their availability. He said it without a flicker of satisfaction, not because he didn't feel it, but because this was not the moment for feeling. This was the moment for closing doors, and he closed that one quietly. The compliance investigation is already open, he continued, filed through proper channels, not by me directly, which means there is no version of this where either of us makes a call, and it disappears. It is inside the system now, and the system will run its course. He paused. The conflict of interest notice to Cho's firm is already in review. OSEI plus Ward plus Cole launches in Atlanta in 60 days with full press coverage. My name will be on every piece of it. Diana said nothing. The warmth was completely gone now. You have one choice, Andre said. You can begin formally distancing yourself from the project's misrepresentations before the investigation becomes public. Or you can absorb everything that's coming alongside a man who has already begun positioning himself to survive it alone. He let that land. He picked up his coffee and finished it. He set the cup down. He stood, reached into his jacket pocket, and placed 2 folded bills on the table beside the saucer. He looked at her one last time. You left me with my drafting table and $4,000, he said. I want you to know I'm grateful. It was exactly enough. He turned and walked toward the door. He did not look back. That particular gesture had always belonged to her. He had no use for it. Andre flew back to New York on a Tuesday morning. He had a window seat. He watched Atlanta shrink beneath the clouds, the skyline, the sprawl, the red Georgia clay visible at the edges of every construction site. He had grown up in that city. He had built things in it. He had lost things in it. Now he was coming back to it on his own terms, with his name on a door that nobody had given him. He ordered water from the flight attendant, opened his laptop, and pulled up the Atlanta expansion files. He got back to work. The investigation went public on a Thursday. Brianna texted him first. AJC just posted. Check your email. He opened the Atlanta Journal-Constitution article at his desk at OSEI plus Ward. The headline was plain and direct. City revokes fast-track status for Whitfield Garrett development following compliance review. The piece ran 4 paragraphs before it named Philip Garrett directly. The core finding was simple. The project's actual affordable unit allocation was 11%. The fast-track affordable housing provision required 30%. Someone had signed off on that discrepancy. That signature was now a matter of public record. Andre read the article once. He set his phone face down and went back to the elevation drawings on his screen. The first 2 anchor investors pulled out within 10 days. He knew this not because he was watching, but because Brianna sent him updates the way she handled everything. Cleanly, without commentary, letting the facts carry their own weight. A short email, 2 names, 2 withdrawal letters sent to Garrett's project office. A third investor had placed his full contribution in escrow, pending the outcome of the compliance review. The project's construction financing was frozen. The site, which had been cleared and staged for groundbreaking, sat still. Philip Garrett's name appeared in the Journal-Constitution twice in 1 week. Neither piece was favorable. The first covered the compliance finding. The second ran in the business section, a brief item about the investor withdrawals and what they signaled for the project's viability. His spokesperson issued a statement. The statement used words like procedural and routine review and confident in resolution. No one quoted in the article used those words back. On a Friday afternoon, a letter from Philip's attorneys arrived at Brianna's office. She responded the same day in 4 sentences. The sentences were precise and quiet, and contained within them the full architecture of everything Andre had built over the past 2 years. She copied Andre on the reply. He read it, saved it to the case folder, and made himself dinner. The ethics board notification arrived at Edward Cho's firm on a Monday. Andre never saw it directly, but word moves through Atlanta's professional communities in specific ways, through shared clients, through lunch conversations, through the careful silences of people who want to stay neutral. Within 2 weeks of the notice being sent, Cho's name carried a particular weight in Atlanta legal circles that it had not carried before. Not the weight of a formal finding. The ethics review would take months. The weight of a question mark that had been placed next to his name and that everyone who knew the legal community understood was not going to lift quietly. 2 of Cho's major clients retained new counsel. No public statements. No explanations given. The market had simply recalculated. The attorney who had lost Andre's divorce case, the one who had failed to counter Diana's asset arguments, who had missed the loan document timeline, who had accepted the referral from a woman whose interests were never aligned with his clients, lost 2 clients of his own in the same week. Again, quietly. Again, without public explanation. The work of accountability does not always announce itself. Sometimes it simply withdraws, the way water withdraws from a crack before the wall comes down. Diana called Philip the week the second AJC piece ran. He answered. He was careful, measured, and told her his attorneys were handling it. He said the word manageable twice. She pushed. He became less available. By the end of that week, his responses had slowed to a pace that communicated, in the language of men who treat people as instruments, that the instrument was being evaluated. It was Brianna who told Andre what happened next. She had a contact close to the project who confirmed it. Philip had searched OSEI Plus Ward's Atlanta project the same night Diana saw the billboard on that New York sidewalk. He had seen the threat. He had understood immediately what it meant for the Whitfield Garrett project's compliance position. And he had said nothing to Diana. He had spent the intervening weeks quietly restructuring his own exposure while she remained the more visible partner. Her name on the public filings, her face in the investor presentations. She chose him over her marriage. He chose himself over her. Andre received this information and did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, "She'll understand it eventually." Brianna said, "Does that change anything for you?" "No," he said. "It just means she'll have to sit with it." Diana's mother called on a Wednesday afternoon. Andre was at his desk when her name appeared on his screen. He answered on the second ring. Her voice was tight, with the particular shame of a woman who had just seen her daughter's name in a newspaper and understood, for the first time, the full shape of how her generosity had been used. "Andre," she said, "I didn't know what she was going to do with that loan." "I believe you," he said. He meant it. He had never been angry at her. She had offered money to a young couple she believed in, and that money had been picked up years later and pointed at the person it was meant to help. She was not a conspirator. She was a resource that had been converted, without her knowledge, into a weapon. He told her this directly. He told her the record would reflect the distinction. He told her she owed him nothing, and that he was glad she called. The call ended with a quietness between them that neither of them had expected. Not warmth exactly, but the specific relief of a truth finally said between 2 people who had both been trying to carry it alone. Brianna filed the civil action on a Thursday morning. It targeted the fraudulent misrepresentation of Cole Design's asset status during the divorce proceedings and the coordinated placement of counsel. It was documented, precise, and built from 2 years of methodical assembly. It would not make Andre rich. It was not designed to. It was designed to do one specific thing: to ensure that what was done to him existed permanently in the official record, attached to the names of the people who did it, for anyone who searched those names from that day forward. There was no version of a Google search from that point on that did not return the filing. Diana was not destroyed. Andre had never wanted destruction. He understood, in the way that architects understand the difference between a collapse and a controlled reduction, that what he wanted was not rubble. He wanted correction. He wanted his name back, and his standing restored, and the official records set right. He had all of that now. What Diana had instead was a life that had become, quietly and permanently, smaller than the one she had planned. Not smaller because of a single catastrophe. Smaller because every calculation she had made with confidence had returned a result she hadn't accounted for. The project was frozen. The man she had chosen himself. The name she had tried to bury was now on a billboard, on a partnership letterhead, on a civil filing that would follow her professionally for years. She had come within one variable of pulling it all off. The variable was Andre. The warehouse had good bones. That was the first thing Andre had said when Victor walked the space with him 14 months earlier, both of them in hard hats, stepping over demo debris and reading the structure the way architects read everything. Not what it was, but what it could hold. The ceiling height was generous. The brick was original. The north-facing windows let in the kind of flat, even light that makes a drafting room feel like thinking made visible. He had specified every detail of the build-out himself. The exposed steel, the poured concrete floors, sealed to a matte finish that caught the late afternoon sun without showing off about it. The floor-to-ceiling window on the east wall that framed the Atlanta skyline like something permanent. He had not hired a designer. He was the designer. That had always been the point. Now the space was full of people, and the people were loud in the best way. The warm, overlapping noise of a room where everyone actually wanted to be there. Victor stood near the model of the Reeves Commission, talking to two city planners with the specific authority of a man who has earned every room he enters. He looked up when Andre came near and gave him a single nod, the highest form of approval in Victor Osei's vocabulary, and went back to his conversation. Brianna had arrived early, as she always did. She was by the long window with a glass of water, talking to Arthur Reeves, who was heavier than he'd been 2 years ago and laughed more easily than a man carrying guilt usually does. He had signed the commission paperwork 6 months back. He had shown up tonight in a suit and looked relieved in the deep way of someone who had finally done the right thing and felt the weight of the wrong thing lift. And then there was Uncle Leon. Leon had driven up from Decatur that morning in the same truck he had driven for 11 years, a dark blue Ford with a cracked dashboard and a contractor's sticker still on the back window from a job he finished in 2019. He had parked it directly in front of the building on the street, unhurried, like a man who did not feel the need to apologize for what he drove. He had walked the entire space before the guests arrived, hands in his jacket pockets, the way he walked any building he was taking seriously. He had stopped at the east window for a long time. He had not said anything. He didn't need to. Andre gave his remarks near the end of the evening, standing at the front of the room without a podium or notes. He was not a natural speaker in the performative sense. He was something better. A man who only said things he meant, which meant, when he spoke, the room got quiet on its own. He talked about starting over, about the particular kind of clarity that arrives when you lose everything except the thing you are actually made of. He said that the work had always been the answer, not as a philosophy, but as a daily, practical fact. You showed up. You built the next thing. You built it as well as you possibly could, because the work was going to outlast you, and you owed it that. He said, "I want to build things that are still standing when I'm not." That has always been the work. Everything else was noise. He did not mention Diana. He did not mention the divorce. There was no version of this room, this night, this name on the wall above the door, that required her as context. What she had done was in the record. It would stay in the record. He did not need to carry it into this room as well. The room received his words the way rooms receive true things, first quietly, and then with warmth. and then with the kind of applause that doesn't feel like a reflex. 3 weeks later, the Reeves Commission broke ground. The coverage ran in 2 local publications and was picked up briefly by an architecture trade journal. The photographs showed Andre at the site in a hard hat and a gray jacket, standing next to Arthur Reeves, both of them looking at the survey stakes driven into red Georgia clay. He looked exactly like what he was. The project met every affordable housing requirement. Every one. The structural design was cleaner, more efficient, and more livable than anything the Whitfield Garrett project had proposed before the financing froze, and the permits stalled, and the site went quiet. The comparison was not lost on anyone who covered Atlanta development that season. No one had to make it explicit. It was simply visible, the way well-built things are always visible, not because they announce themselves, but because they hold. The Whitfield Garrett flagship site had been sold at a loss to a creditor the previous month. Philip Garrett's company was in formal restructuring. The development billboard that had once carried his name near the I-20 corridor now carried a different name, advertising a project that no longer resembled what he had promised. His name was gone from the board. The city did not mourn its absence. Diana had stepped back from Atlanta's development space entirely. Not in a single dramatic moment. Just gradually, the way a tide withdraws, until one day you look at the shore, and the waterline is somewhere different than it used to be. She was not destroyed. That had never been the point. But the life she had engineered was smaller than the one she had planned, and the civil record bearing her name would not expire. It would simply sit there, permanent and searchable, the way all records sit, waiting for anyone who needed to know. The guests thinned out after 9. By 9:30, the room was nearly empty. Brianna had left with a hug and a look that said everything she had already said in 4 years of phone calls and legal filings, and one spare bedroom offered without condition. Victor had shaken Andre's hand at the door and said simply, "Good start," which from Victor Osi meant, "I was right about you, and I am glad I was right about you." Arthur Reeves had stayed until almost the end, looking at the architectural models like a man memorizing something he wanted to keep. Leon was still there. He was standing at the east window when Andre found him, hands still in his jacket pockets, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. The city spread out beyond the glass in the way Atlanta spreads at night, not vertical like New York, but wide and lit and warm. A city that sprawls like it has room to spare. Leon had grown up watching that skyline from southwest Atlanta. He had watched it from job sites and from Leon's house in Decatur, and from this street tonight when he had parked his truck and looked up at the sign above the door. Andre walked over and stood beside him. They looked at the city together, the way they had always done things together, not requiring the other to perform presence, just being in it, side by side, letting the quiet do what silence between people who trust each other always does. Then Leon put his hand on Andre's shoulder. "Your name's on a building, nephew." Andre looked at the skyline, at the city he came from, at the lights scattered across it like something that had been there all along, waiting. "Yeah," he said. "It is. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.